is a must. So Babylon set the liberty, every day another one bite the dust. My Lord, you don't have to say you're sorry for all the wrongs that you have done. I don't wanna hear sad story, cause the damage I'll
Good evening and welcome to Plain Talk. My name is Christopher Ram. Thank you for joining me once again for another hour for discussions. And the topic this evening is Article 13, a new civil society initiative. And my guest to announce the launch of this initiative or the formation of this initiative is a colleague and friend, Dr. Mahadeo, religious and cultural society leader. And in the interest of transparency and full disclosure, I must say, I must let you, the viewers, know that I am part of this initiative, the formation of this group called Article 13. So on that note, let me welcome Dr. Mahadeo. If you don't mind, I'd prefer to call you first name. And yeah,
please do.
Welcome to Plain Talk.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and happy to talk about Article 13.
Article 13, it's what does it mean?
Well, it's, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the emotive part of it, right? Because there's the legal side, there's the emotion and everything else. The emotive part of it is that the founding fathers, in looking at the preamble of the Constitution even, and looking at the Constitution and the creation of this country called Guyana would have thought that this is a country in which everybody can be included in some way, shape, or form in government, in determining what is government and good governance and stuff like that. Over the 40 years, 40 plus years of the last major constitutional amendment to now, we have not seen anything other than a cosmetic attempt to have inclusionary government, an inclusionary political system in place. What we have had is marriage of convenience between political persons and political groupings and stuff like that. So I think in a large way, Chris, what has germinated here is the need to see people from all levels of society be included as active stakeholders in a government, in the evolution and development of Guyana.
We'll get back to this still Article 13 and what you mean there. But is this the same thing about winner will not take all, the Cherry Dragon mantra, and then winner took all?
Yes.
Except if you can say Civic and APNU AFC. And my concern is whether your organization, Article 13, can succeed where the political parties have failed.
Well, yes, I believe so. And I don't believe there has been abject failure. I believe that we have tried, we have not achieved the successes we wanted. Things have changed. I mean, look at the WPA, look at the AFC. What the AFC probably achieved in the first place of forming that force in Parliament, and then they got subsumed in the coalition. But I think generally it speaks to a Guyana that wants to be included, wants to be involved in the decision making of this country. And I believe that we haven't failed. We haven't achieved the successes we want, but we haven't had abject failure, and this gives us the impetus or the platform in which to try again and try again. And I don't know that we will be the success story, but we will certainly be another step up, so that ultimately our sons and daughters can be handed a vision of a country in which they can truly be involved.
Is it that the accidents of history, slavery followed by indentureship, and this clash of between what create distorted the market for wages? Do we have deep-seated problems in this country? And is this effort by your group, and I'm going to ask you about what constitutes that group, is this an overambitious quest for a holy grail that probably does not exist?
Overly ambitious, overly might be an adjective that I wouldn't want. It is ambitious. Whether it can be achieved, I am sure it can be achieved. And I'll tell you why, Chris. We, coming into this world, I think we all grew up into a world in which we saw politicians, the early days politicians were almost, put it in this word, almost romantic figures. You saw leaders that you aspired to become. You saw people that you dreamed, I want to be like that.
And not only in the political sphere. You think of Hubert Nathaniel Critchlow straight away.
Correct.
You think of Dr. Richmond. We've had some excellent citizens.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, through the march of history, we have had other citizens who have also been excellent, but they became politically aligned and maligned. And so the values they could have given to independent thinking Guyana to really evolve has not happened. And we end up in a society where you move from the leaders that you want to be like to leaders that say, do as I say and don't do as I do. And leaders that say, I must dictate for you what you must like in this country and what contracts you might get and what ministers you must have and stuff like that. So the winner take all things has tried, and I would say that has been proven to be a failure, because it's just continued to divide us further and further. The solution, though, is not going to be easy, and the solution can only come with agitation from the people of this country. We must get to that stage, and Chris, I'm going to be emotive about this. We must get to that stage when taxpayers of this country must look at the ministers in the eyes and say, I am paying you to do the civil service, and not the other way around. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent. To come back to your point, though, we have gotten to the stage where if you don't belong to one of the two big parties, you might as well disappear. You're not going to be tolerated. If you're not going to be loyal to the maximum leaders of either camp, you're not going to be tolerated. And we have seen what happened. The coalition, everybody thought in pre-2015, those days everybody thought, this might work. It will give Guyana a brand new chance in a brand new paradigm, coalition politics. But again, the maximum leader kind of thing came up. And very quickly you see that the PPP, PNC kind of mentality continues to dominate us. So that even the excellent minds that have evolved through Guyana's history, now you either got to belong to one camp or the other. Who will our children say I want to be like?
And do you think, because if we were to not blame but just explain the political practices, the electoral practices, we support one or the other and we ignore the WP of the 70s and the 80s was surely a national party that offered immense promise.
Yes.
And yet when elections came in 1992, the voters went back to their camps.
Yes. But Chris, one caveat in there. Since post 1997 thereabouts, I think getting into the 2000s, you have seen a growing set, small but still growing set of the population, voting population, that are saying, we're not going to go this big stick, big tent politics. We're not going to go with these two camps. We're going to start to carve out a little niche for ourselves. It has worked, and I believe it can work. And I think the desire here is to involve everyone, regardless of what might be your cultural or other backgrounds, into thinking we can, we must, we will kind of thinking. That we can shape Guyana's politics. As a citizen, we don't have to take whatever a maximum leader decides for us. We can say, no sir, we're stakeholders in this process, and here is what we think you should do.
The experiences 2015 and 2020 in fact support what you're saying. That look, it only takes that small group of what in some countries are regarded as the swing voters, or the independents.
Correct.
To make a difference. 2015 government change, 2020 government change.
Absolutely.
So maybe it is possible. But let's get back to Article 13. According to the statement that you have released to the media today, this organization of patriotic Guyanese has derived its name from that key component of our constitution. Even though it's not a fundamental right,
Correct.
it is still one of the bases of our political system.
Correct.
Now, the inclusionary government, and if you look at the actual wording, that the individuals must be able to have a say in the decision-making processes that affect their social and economic well-being, etc. Do they do this?
In terms of the inclusion,
Yes.
the short answer would be no. The short, accurate answer is no. There has been cosmetic inclusion at some level of things. But there is a practical example, Chris. Under APNO, they did an entire commission in Gaisuku. Right?
Yes, yes.
Independent society came out and said, no, don't close the estates. Government ignored independent society. Government ignored all the intellect that could have come out. Forget independent society. Even the thinkers and the analysts told them, no, don't close Gaisuku because of so many reasons. Yet, what did government do? It proceeded and made I believe, a backward political decision and decimated a number of things. I don't think the Granger government realized it was affecting drainage and irrigation, not just people's lives, affecting so many things, affecting social security, right? NIS.
Yes.
A whole set of things. All the banks and everything had a lifeline there. So that's a prime example. Another example, shoe fits on the other foot, is that pre-2015 there has been talks about Amila Falls. There has been talks about solar wind farms and all of that. And you have had parts of a great part of the intelligentsia giving and sharing their opinions publicly and openly as to some of these things. Why should you go into a project where your cost of production is quadruple what is the international cost? So, but these things are largely ignored. Ignored might be a hard or harsh term in some people's minds, But the question that should be asked, have the stakeholders of this country and elsewhere been harnessed? And the last example I'll give on this, Chris, to show how inclusionary governance has not been inclusionary, has been cosmetic. Let's go back to the last couple of years, APNU government, because they deserve a lot of licks for where we are. Look, the PPP government is always going to look good because they'll be compared to nothing that was achieved by APNU. The contract, the petroleum agreement that APNU signed, you had the world of people and the entire world of oil producing nations that were there to tell you what's their experience, what not to give away, what to sign, what not to sign. All of that was ignored. And you had these men putting their signature to a document, that stops Guyana from even renegotiating a contract. And what Exxon has done is, I'm going to use a harsh word here, what APNU and Exxon has done is castrate Guyana and its ability for Parliament to pass laws. This contract says your Parliament cannot even pass a law.
Yes, you cannot pass a law that adversely affects Exxon.
Correct.
Without compensating them.
Without compensating.
Which means you can't touch them,
correct.
really.
And even if you have a problem and it goes to arbitration, the arbiter can only make such decisions that will be of economic benefit to the contractor.
Yeah. But the issue of a civil society organization, the political parties could do a few things. They could ignore you.
Mm-hmm.
They could probably alienate you. They could cuss you out. They could buy you over. Why? And in a way, it's, I'm here as an interviewer, not as a member
yes.
of Article 13. Why do you feel that you would be taken seriously?
Well, we've had good experience, haven't we? I mean, I've been an independent and outspoken person forever. And, the three first points that you made, ignored, beaten, and we've been there, done that. But you have consistently seen, Chris, the objective of Article 13 is not to attack a government. Our objective is not to go and tell the PPP or any other government, you're wrong. Our objective is to hold hands, to sit together as genuine stakeholders, genuine persons interested to work with any party, be it government or civil society, towards the development and betterment of Guyana. And we say so there that we want to work with everybody and we're calling on everybody to do it. One of the things we want to do is education. So their contracts, the government has not done enough, I feel, to inform the public about what are these limiting clauses in this contract that makes it so bad. We want to tell the public, here is what happened. So I believe that yes, we will be ignored, we will be beaten. I think that a few of the persons who are associated, as you know, Chris, a lot of persons have signaled their support, but they prefer to stay in the background.
That's correct.
That's Guyana. That's Guyana since from independence, well, even before, from then to now. There is undeniably fear continues to stalk this land. Fear of the big stick politics beating down on people. That's not going to change anything.
You know where those words came from? Fear stalks this land.
Tell me.
It's at the Walter Rodney funeral service when the Barbadian writer, his name slips me,
okay,
said that fear stalks the land. Your statement says this: the modest goal of our group is to advocate for these aspirations and rights to be realized. You want to continue? It's in the second paragraph. Have you got it?
Yes, I have it here. Yes, the modest goal of our group is to advocate for these aspirations and rights to be realized for a land and a country of which, wherever we roam, we can hold our head high, stand tall, and proudly proclaim that as a nation we live our dreams. Guyana has been known. Chris, before coming here, I was reading an article about corruption in the Pacific Islands. You check pre-2015, what was Guyana on the corruption index? Right, we were on the mid-20s. So there, if we can take a couple of moments on this, Chris, if you don't mind, because it's going to lead to our point there. The corruption index pre-2015 has been in the mid-20s, which is very low, because 100 means you're good, 0 means you're really, really bad. We've been in mid-20s. But there are different types of corruption, right? There is the obvious corruption where business people have to pay a bribe to get things done, and civil society has to pay to get things done. And then there is the soft, the white-collared corruption, where governments, are themselves involved, and there is lack of transparency. Whether there's theft is another matter, but there is lack of transparency. There's bureaucratic walls put up so that things are not easy. Post 2015, I think going up to 2018, 2019, that corruption index went right up to 40s. We were getting somewhere good.
Yeah.
We await now with bated breaths to see what it is presently, but you can't ignore no other than the personage of the U.S. ambassador saying it's hard to do business in Guyana for overseas firms to come and do business in Guyana. The point I'm making here is, if it's hard for an American firm to do business in Guyana, can you imagine how hard it is for Guyanese to do business? Corruption is in many ways, defined, undefined. And this guy, Peter Cligard, he made a nice statement that you need a bureaucratic hygiene in your state. And what it speaks to, I mean no offense to the ministers, Chris, but I believe some of these things need to be spoken of. Look, the ministers are on campaign all the time. Ministers of Guyana, the ministers of government, they are on a full-time campaigning mode all the time, using state funds, using state resources. There's no campaign financing regulation that is being enforced in any way, shape, or form. You decide, a government makes a decision, good enough. We're going to give the school kids some assistance, or we're going to give flood relief. Does every envelope you give have to be accompanied with a minister handing it, and to have photographs posted all over the place of the recipients? It speaks to not only narcissism, but it speaks to a mode of corruption that we must, as a people, start to discuss. It is not okay for you to take taxpayers' money and give it back to them in an envelope, and then say, I'm doing you a favor. It's their money. We can discuss all of that, but to come back to your point here, where, we want to live in a country where wherever we go, we must be proud to say we're Guyanese. There have been so many years, Chris, when we are ashamed to say where we are, or where we are from. We went through the years with the bench in Barbados. You go through Trinidad Airport, you're treated like trash. So all of these things, APNU government didn't do us any favors. They actually muddied the waters much more. We want to work with civil society and government so that we can have a country where we can tell the world, this country is being run by the people of Guyana. They're included in various decision making. They're included, and you don't have to have a party card to be included.
I notice in your statement as well, you talk about our economic model being based on low wages, and that's the flip side of this thing. People don't have money, so they have to beg, and they have to rely on the state on handouts.
Yes,
which then become easy methodology and easy means for political exploitation.
Absolutely.
If I'm giving you, then you owe me something.
Absolutely. And we have seen that happen. People who receive what is their right to receive, whether it's a house lot or anything else from the government, if they come out and protest, they're being slapped on the wrist. But yes, we have a model, an economic model that's based on low wages. We have a systemic problem, political problem with that. The government feels it's obliged to carry a wide swath of workers in various areas, be it Gaisuku, public service, or wherever it is. And it's not going to pay too much money because these people are baggage to the system in government's view. The PPP is not going to touch the public service. There has been public service reform, hasn't there been? There has been all of these studies done, and the vice president,
reform, and then we go back to the Desmond Hoyt had one of the most thorough public sector reform. He slashed the number of ministries and the whole business of accountability and excellence. I mean, I think Desmond Hoyt is one of the most unrecognized political leaders of this country.
Exactly. And you know, Chris, the VP said some words the other day that I wish to echo. He said, you know, I think he was referring to one of the projects that the government wants to do. And he said there are over 4,000 pages of studies available for the public to read. Why you guys don't read, and, you know, kind of thing like that. And that's the point. There are studies and studies and studies. But at the end of the day, what is happening is up to anybody's guess as to where of the 4,000 pages it's coming from.
So how does, and now we go back to the how, we understand this objective, and you know, you make this point about low wages. Low wages for the majority.
Yes.
But there are some people who get real, to use Chetty Jagan's words, super salaries.
Yes.
And they get illegal these periodic payments. You know, that we're going to pay you 21.5% because
Correct.
you're not on the pension scheme. That is only for government employees.
Absolutely.
Lots of people in corporations get this money. So you do have, and I don't know where you stand on this. You yourself have been with one of the largest private sector organizations in Guyana, GT&T. But you have a system that favors the wealthy, that favors capital over labor. Dividends are tax-free in Guyana, but employee earnings, so shareholders' earnings are tax-free, but employee earnings are taxable.
Correct.
Something must be wrong, and we come back to the model. In order to attract persons of different viewpoints, how is Article 13 going to be able to overcome those conflicts and challenges?
But those are always going to be conflicts for which we are going to have healthy debates on. Within our group, I know we are going to have healthy debates on those things because, Chris, you know, to quote, you know, one of Bernie Sanders' favorite campaign sound bites would have been, you know, and it's true in Guyana, 5% of the people enjoy 95% of the wealth of this country.
I think it's even worse than that.
1991.
I think a maximum of 2%.
But there you
control 98%.
98% of the wealth. And you are so right that the ones that earn, the earners, they're the ones that pay the taxes. And the other way too, Chris, is that how much wealth is being paid in salaries and wages towards the productive sector versus the non-productive sector. And those kinds of analyses we would want to generate, we would want to have position papers on so that we can make an educated outlay.
You said Article 13 is not intended to be it's apolitical.
Correct.
It's professional. Is it then an ivory tower of Dr. Mahadeo and those high flyers of society, the intellectuals, trying to speak down to people and not addressing the bread and butter issues?
Well, no, Chris, and here are the reasons why. I believe I'm one of the many very grassroots oriented people. I travel around the country, visit many places, many homes, and I'm happy sitting with people and talking to them about whatever is affecting them. And there are other persons within our group equally that comes from the villages. So while you might see some of our faces as being the spokespersons, behind the scenes there are so many others working and giving their ideas and sharing what's happening to them. You speak to people in border markets, Stabroek, Corriverton, Portmont, all the markets, Essequibo and so forth. And that's how we know that there are places and things to look at. Look, we just don't decide that we need to talk about EPA or the seeming sudden need or how to put it, the seeming sudden no need for EIAs for certain things.
Yes.
Right? So people...
EIA being environmental impact
assessments, yes. So there'd be people who would say something is wrong with this picture. A man is coming out to set up a factory near to me, and all of a sudden he doesn't need, but when I had to set up mine, I had to go through everything to get my stuff done. So people are calling us. It's not top down, it's bottom up to say, can you guys please look at this? Can you please do some analysis here? Like with the oil spill in Trinidad the other day. That didn't come from anywhere. I don't think I saw any comment, indignation or anything from government or the I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong I apologize, but I don't think it came across my scope of vision where I saw any direct statement about that. Maybe because nobody thought it's going to affect Guyana, and
yes,
maybe because we think, hey, we better keep our mouth shut. But the environment is extremely important. The oil is going to run out. It's the environment we're going to hand to the future.
Well, the environment is as Joe Biden, the U.S. president, said, this is an existential matter.
Yes. Yes.
And for a place like Guyana below sea level, it could be quite a challenge. Now, Article 13, it's open to whom?
Everybody. Everyone. And there is no required membership. In my own humble view, all that is required is they need to be included, they need to have a voice, they need to be represented, they need to be a stakeholder in Guyana's development.
But they must share in in these ideals.
Yes.
They can't be part of an organization condemning corruption when they themselves
exactly
are entering into all kinds of secret deals.
Thank you. Indeed.
Is it also open to is it resident Guyanese or Guyanese anywhere?
It's Guyanese anywhere. Undoubtedly, we have skill sets that would lend their intellect and intelligence to our thinking. There be things that we here might not be experienced in, and however, I would really love and this is personal, not Article 13 driven. My personal, I'm passionate about seeing those who sweat it out here to really get a good break. I wouldn't say more than that at this stage.
I guess that itself is an issue that has a lot of protagonists.
Yes.
On both sides. Some people feel, look, our remittance has kept your country going. Well, I don't think the remittance ever was paid into the treasury.
Yes, exactly.
It's never been about helping Guyana. It's about helping maybe some relative. But we cannot at the same time downplay it. They played a big part in charity work, doing things that the government ought to be doing.
But there is a value, Chris. Undoubtedly, the biggest stakeholders were selling this name called Guyana, a land that we can be proud of wherever we go. The diaspora, will be one of the critical stakeholders in that, as well as some of the technical areas.
I think we do have some of the really, really top people. They would rank among the best in the world in their particular field. How do you may say that you're apolitical, that you're non-partisan. How do you convince the politicians of this?
Convincing the politicians might be, the politicians are always going to interpret what we are by their own political lenses. I think what we have to do is to be steadfast. Here are our goals, and we are going to go about it regardless of what the politicians may think. Because the truth is, Chris, when we are going to side with the government or any politician on any particular issue, it's going to be okay for them. Then you're okay. But the moment you speak against whatever moves they want to make, then you're going to be deemed to be political. The aim here is not to please the politicians, but to be a voice on matters of national interest, and we are going to focus on that. We don't have any politicians per se in our group. Whether we will accommodate them, we will. I think we will. Not in terms of their political personage, but in terms of their intellect and their experience. As a matter of fact, some of the very things that we are looking at researching presently has come from some of these same guys, right? But we are apolitical, and for all of Guyana, non-political. We are not subscribing to any political party. I myself don't have a political card to any political party. And Chris, I think one of the key elements that we are currently passionately interested about is elections. The fact that a handful of people could have hijacked Guyana's election machinery is one of the most heinous crimes against humanity, I think. But the other thing that I find appalling is the fact that a year after, there has been no public hearing.
Yeah.
That is criminal.
Well, on this question of public hearing, we seem to be very selective. And again, we talking about the previous administration, the APNU AFC. One had expected they would have had a serious commission of inquiry into the crime wave. You would have expected the PPP to have had a serious inquiry into the circumstances leading to that 2016
Correct.
petroleum agreement.
Correct.
Now, it's of course going to be troubling. But I've sat here on the same chair, and I've interviewed a number of persons because I do believe that give people a voice. And they tell you they don't want people. They are the front, but they don't want people behind. Don't want to be identified. Does that apply to Article 30? Do you really have a core set of members at this stage who would not mind being named as associated with this group?
There are, and I think in a matter, we're now in a formative stage. In a matter of a couple of weeks, we are going to become more and more visible. As is, it's Raymond Gaskin and I have signed as co-coordinators for the group. Thank you for your ideas and your help. You have also been very instrumental in whatever little progresses we have achieved. And as time go by, Chris, I don't think anybody or not many that joins the group would want to remain in the background. We want to have our voices heard, and we're going to come out and let our voices be heard.
How do you, for all the nobility of your goals and your objectives, you have to come down to the day-to-day question of where do you get money from? Who finances the initiatives you talk about? Because I am presuming that this is not a Georgetown organization.
Correct. Correct.
It's a national organization.
That's right. It's national, and it's all voluntary. Everybody has whatever expenses we have basically been paying for it from ourselves. And our aim is, of course, to start to put together a purse that will help to fund what we plan to do. You know, Chris, to get academic research done on any of these topics that we're going to be talking about, environment, for example, law reform, for example, is not going to be cheap, and it's not going to be easy, and nobody's going to help us.
Yeah.
So we are working towards seeing how we can be self-sustaining, how we can self-sustain ourselves. It's not going to be easy. I hear you, and a lot of persons have expressed that you know, you are going up a very steep mountainside, but I believe the acceptance that we are going up is good.
Well, it remains a challenge, and it remains to be seen.
Yes.
Because you know, you could be very successful as individuals.
Absolutely.
And you get in this, and you think, look, this, although we are for inclusionary and participatory involvement, sometimes you think, I ain't able to this. I'd rather do it on my own. How do you resist a temptation like that, Joe?
True. Chris, there have been so many times, and I'm sure, you know, I mean no offense when I say this to you. I'm sure the thought has crossed your mind too. There's so many times you kind of, why do I do this? You know, it's so easy to just pack it up and just turn your back on it. But every time, Chris, I have 2 sons, and every time I look at them, I ask myself, what kind of country am I leaving for the 2 of you? Am I leaving a country where you would remember your dad just turned his back on everything and just left? Look, let me personalize it. Yogi Mahadeo recently in 2020, you know, I was out there on an independent platform beating up APNU for everything under the sun. I can't now, with the eyes of my children on me, say that I'm going to shut up and be silent when the now government does anything of the similar sort. Right? So integrity is extremely important. It might be all that we have to attach to our name after we go. Right? It is easy to give up, but we got to motivate ourselves. We got to pick ourselves up. We are not being paid by anybody. We are not being funded by anybody. And we are certainly hoping that as a group that is looking into good governance and all of these things that we put out there, that yes, we can probably attract funding, we can probably attract the kind of support we need, both intelligence-wise and funding, so that we can do the work on representing the people.
For all the grand vision that Article 13 and indeed the preamble to the Constitution set out, it's no disrespect is meant to young people. Mm-hmm. Many young people may not even be aware of what Article 13 is.
Correct.
How do you get around that gap, that void?
Education. For example, one of the things that I had planned to wear coming to this thing was a shirt that says, has the Article 13 written on it, but you know, you only gave me this morning notice, so
I do apologize.
So, but you know, we have started a Facebook page, and the heading of the Facebook page is what Article 13 is.
Yes.
Words are very clear, and we plan to continue to say it. What we plan to do as well is to, you know, every now and again, every month, we're gonna bring out one of these fundamental rights.
Yes.
Put it out there. Let people be aware of what their rights are. But also to say rights is a funny thing, right? Right doesn't mean absolute right.
That's correct.
Like the majority wasn't absolute. Rights, you cannot enjoy your right at the expense of someone else's. So we plan to go down this educational path, telling people what's happening, visiting schools, visiting young people, sharing ideas, talking to them what the Constitution, how it caters for them, and it's only them that can make it work. Chris, one last thing I'll say on that note. Look, I I doubt whether there'll be constitutional change before the next election. I would wish that the current government will surprise me and make me come out and say, I'm happy there is. But, we have seen bodies formed and bodies formed and bodies formed, but, the action will be left to be seen. But at the end of the day, the preamble of the Constitution speaks to the fundamental rights, speaks to what people want. That's in the preamble. So
the grand vision.
Exactly. So it's still to be achieved, and I'm sure that we can teach our sons and daughters that they can achieve it.
Are we fighting against culture in promoting this grand vision? That and it's another way of asking the question I asked before. It's people go back to, as far as they're concerned, there are only two options they have.
Yes.
Now, your suggestion is that education will lead with this.
Education will lead. And Chris, the good thing that's happening is the 15,000 persons in Guyana have shown us over the past 2 or 3 elections that they are thinking differently. And more will be thinking differently. And as Guyana's population grow, look, every day you go to the airport, people continue to leave this country.
Yes. Sadly.
People, and it speaks, people are voting with their feet. Now, what's going to happen though is that Guyana will attract people. Whether you like them or you don't like them, they are going to come. They're going to get themselves residents here. They're going to become citizens of this country, and they're going to enjoy the wealth that you and I and others might be packing up and leaving to go outside. But ultimately, in 20 years, this entire country's face might change. Who knows?
You a number of times you refer to elections. Are elections the solution to Guyana's problems?
Chris, I would say elections is a solution. It's the only power that people have in this country to exercise that right.
But that's
vote.
only once. That's once, maybe every 5 years.
That can change. I mean, America, the great democracy that they claim to be there for years, right? Election is not necessarily the answer, because it does, all election does, according to some people, is entrench that divide and make sure that we know we are separate.
The harshest kind of differences and difficulties
Correct.
tend to come around the election time, and Jamaica, Trinidad, and
Correct.
Guyana is not. Is far off when it comes to killings and so on.
Yeah.
We are good in that regard. We have the divisions, but we do not go killing people.
Correct.
Just because of
we're a peaceable
election
society. Yeah. But Chris, the truth is that I believe that elections are important. They're very important, and elections cannot be disregarded by any government. But education in terms of the population, our youngsters need to be reached. Persons who are now going to be voting for the first time, for example. Your economic value must not be dependent on the pleasures of a government and their decision to give you a handout or not. Your economic value is dependent on many other things, including your own decision. And that's one of the critical factors.
But the government does have a duty to protect its citizens, and sometimes you think that that's where it does fall on, because crime is not.
Correct.
Most people have to look after their own security.
Correct.
Which is not a good idea. But I want to get to this point that you talk about elections. If you and your group see elections as so important, are you ruling out your group ever going down that path?
We are about elections, not about being elected. So we would want to ensure, Chris, look, God forbid, if there is ever a repeat of any degree of what happened at GCOM in the future, that might be it for this country. I don't know how much the people of this country will continue to tolerate. That cannot happen again. And here is where we, the politicians, are. I don't know your personal views about it, but my views, as long as we're going to have a system where it's 3 PPP and 3 PNC, GCOM is going to go nowhere.
And I think balance is also important. This is not the first time that GCOM and CEO has sought to subvert the wishes of the voters.
Correct.
It happened under another administration. So,
Correct.
in that sense, your point is well taken. Why is it that somebody could think they could get away with this?
And to the degree that they did. There is another thing that we must remember too in discussing GCOM. You cannot stop the employees of GCOM from having their own political, biases.
But employees, you have to draw a distinction between an employee and a chief election officer, for example.
Exactly.
A returning officer has to be independent.
Exactly.
Chief elections officer, deputy chief must be independent.
Correct. But Chris,
and be seen to be independent.
And be seen to be independent, because you come back to the patronages, you come back to the corruption. Look, I will leave it to public opinion as to whether there was a handshake in a chief elections officer getting a huge swath of land in the same period in which an elections will be decided upon. But the truth is, public perception is what determines a lot of these things. And governments need to ensure that these things are very clear, and there must be full disclosure.
Yes.
You know that the last government, they have, all of them, sorry to be carrying on, but there are so many things that we need to talk about. Integrity Commission. Governments, the law is
Do we
there.
have one now? We don't. We don't have integrity commissioners.
Correct. But the period has gone for filing, right?
Yes.
And the commission has not been
Constituted.
But also you have had a history where the convenience of complying has been cited on multiple occasions. So people say, well, I disclosed this, but did it mean I have to disclose this as well? I disclose a phone, does it mean I have to disclose a charge as well? They're dissecting it.
Yeah.
And at some stage but when you have a president, past or when the present or future, that will not comply, then that is terrible for Guyana to be in.
We come back to Article 13 though.
Yes.
We're going to have time to discuss. You'll always be welcome on this program.
Thank you.
I should say next week, Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, has already agreed to comment, because this whole question of the COVID-19 and how you respond to it, whether mandatory vaccination or indirect mandatory, that's important. But the question I ask you, are you ruling out that Article 13 as an organization could in fact go down that electoral route?
I am just one member of Article 13, Chris. That's my opinion. We have formed a group as an apolitical group, and that's where we are. I cannot predict the future. I would not want to, because the truth is that if we are comprised of 10,000 members and 9,000 of them decided they want to do something, we cannot hold them down. That's their fundamental right.
Do you intend to approach various groups of stakeholders and say, look, we are on the scene, we want to play our part, how can we play our part? Not only with the civil society, but the political parties, the labor movement, the religious community?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We are looking at arranging a number of meetings, and it's not going to happen overnight. We don't want to rush it. We want to make educated decisions, meeting with government, meeting with the opposition, meeting with the labor groups, meeting with various stakeholders in Guyana, and we educate ourselves as we go on. And we are new, we are learning, and we are not shy saying that we want to learn as well.
In your statement, you mention these words. The rule of law, which incidentally is also in the preamble to the Constitution, the rule of law is too often selectively applied, even subverted. Now, let me give you a good example. This question of the dual citizenship of persons going on the list, it was the most flagrant disregard of our Constitution.
Correct.
It took place for over 20 years, and look how it all tumbled down because we couldn't get count how was the half.
That's right.
Was a majority, simple majority of 65.
That's right.
So that was a fundamental breach of the rule of law.
Correct.
The question of ignoring the Representation of the People Act provision regarding election expenses is a violation of the rule of law.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chris, going back to the first one, it's a crying shame. A lot of people in Guyana might not realize that every member of the National Assembly, before their name go on that list, before
a statutory declaration,
they sign their name, they take
they
an
go
oath,
to jail if they lie.
accept, exactly, let me spell it out, these people accept that they will go to jail because what they're saying here, they swear to it as being true, that they're not citizenship, they don't have citizenship in any other country, they all have lied. And yes, it's going on for a long time.
And several lawyers did it. Several lawyers. So again, how does a society, forget Article 13 alone, because it can't do everything.
Correct.
How does it monitor, I don't want to use the word police, the society, how does it monitor violations of the rule of law?
Exception basis. Some of these things will come to our attention by third parties. Some of it will come to our attention directly, indirectly, and so forth. Some of these things, Chris, the only way you can get it out there is to talk about it openly. Bring it out, let the public be aware. Like, I think, you and I would have been part of the original, this goes back to pre-2015, when we raised this thing about people in National Assembly.
Yes.
I remember I wrote a letter to Stabrook News, and I was slapped so hard by political leaders in this country when I said, Carl Greenwich, Prime Minister acting, is a citizen.
Yeah.
So
I wrote GCOM several times.
Yeah.
I wrote letters to the press. So it boils down to this. How does Article 13, with its modest beginning, and I think it's the term you use, the modest goal of our group is to advocate.
yes.
Where do you see Article 13 in 2 years' time? Or is it going to be one of these organizations that come up, flash a bright light, and disappears?
Not at all. Not at all. I see that in 2 years' time, the members of Article 13 would have matured in terms of all of the areas that we want to advocate on. We are taking baby steps at this moment. We are going to mature. We're going to do a lot of reading. All the members are encouraged to read a lot of these things so that when we speak out of an educated platform. We are going to tag ourselves along. And look, Chris, we don't want to work in isolation. There's Transparency International. There's all of these groups out there that we want to work together with. Yes.
You will join other organizations and other organizations will join you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
it's not just individual members, but organizations can be part of it.
So you yourself would be inclusive and inclusionary.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
I see our time is going. I wonder if you could quickly talk about this division we have over this vaccination. Quickly.
I would put it this way. I am fully vaccinated. The people I work with and deal with are all fully vaccinated. I believe that the world's opinion at large has been to take vaccination. I support vaccination. The mandatory aspect of it, I will answer the following way, Chris. I have a 6-year-old son. he cannot be vaccinated.
Yes.
So as much as the government owes you that right to not force you to be vaccinated, they owe my son the protection for coverage as well.
Interesting challenge. But again, it's a matter that our society seems to have lost in the politics.
Yes. Yeah, Chris, that's the exact phrase you have used there. If it were not for the politics, would we all have been vaccinated?
It's a good question.
And many of the people who are leading this voice against vaccination, they have been fully vaccinated.
So it's always one of the anomalies one finds. Maybe the Minister of Health on our program next week will want to tell us, get into that discussion, including the constitutional aspect. But Dr. Yoga, I want to say thank you very much for being in Plain Talk as one of the named coordinators along with Raymond Gaskin. I want to assure you that, well, as I said at the beginning, I am part of this organization. I've been part of the founding of it, as I've been of a number of other organizations. You would always be welcome, as indeed other organizations and groups. There's no cost for appearing in Plain Talk. Please feel free at any time. So thank you very much and good luck to Article 13.
Thank you. My pleasure, Chris. Anytime.
Operators and viewers, thank you. Good night. See you next week.
Already done. Oh, the damage already done. Everybody wants their peace of mind, trying to justify how they deal with mankind. Sometimes I wonder how they sleep at night time when all the damage already done. Oh, the damage already done. Stop and listen a while to meditation style, going straight to your mind, to your wicked and wild. Only way you can deal with these vibes is to free up your soul and mind. Ayaga, yaga, 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 yo. You don't have to say you're sorry.